Title of my talk is How Pyrsia is Using libp2p to Take Over the World. My name is Elliott Frisch. I work for JFrog. We help developers leap forward. Been a developer for over 20 years and writing Rust for about a year. Provided a couple of links there, but we will revisit those at the end. And also, I stole my title from Pinky in the Brain, so credit to Time Warner. So what is Pyrsia? It's part of the Continuous Delivery Foundation. It's implemented in Rust, and it's a repository for binary packages. The intention is to be a Git for binaries, to be secure, to provide reproducible builds, and to be scalable. We're implementing a transparency ledger, which is currently a blockchain, but might change, and a consensus engine. And of course, we're using libp2p. So why Pyrsia? The vast majority of developers are trustworthy people, but as Ken Thompson famously pointed out as early as 1984 in his paper Reflections on Trusting Trust, there are people who like to exploit systems for personal gain or just to brag. And some of them have been quite successful. And we've all read about SolarWinds attack and the Log4Shell. And even in Rust, there's been a few malicious crates that have been discovered, such as this Rust decimal. Not Rust underscore decimal, of course, the other one. Here was another interesting attack on NPM where people don't keep their email addresses up to date and domain names expire. So somebody literally just said, oh, okay, the domain name for each maintainer has been expired. I'll buy it. And now he's the NPM maintainer for each. This is just the tip of the iceberg, of course. These are the ones that we know about. So our goal is to secure all of this by providing provenance when distributing binaries. We're starting with Docker images, but we intend to support Maven very soon, and then we'll expand from there. We use libp2p for messaging. We've got hole punching with NAT. We're using Kademlia for building a distributed hash table, and we have various pub sub event handles that we're using. And libp2p is giving us scalability, reliability, and security. The provenance log or the transparency ledger or the blockchain, whatever you want to call it, distributes blocks over the network using libp2p, and we use a basic consensus algorithm, but unfortunately currently it's just we say so, but there's voting actually coming. And we got fast crash recovery for local storage and highly available peers, and then we do validation of correctness with cryptographic hashes. And we're actually in the middle of implementing an asynchronous Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus algorithm. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but we're working on it. And I believe we're using libp2p, which does that. But I still don't know exactly what that means. So don't ask me too many questions on that. Network nodes are going to be able to call and hold elections regarding artifact validity and build reproducibility. We won't persist the artifact to the blockchain until a sufficient number of nodes have reproduced it, and we reach consensus that the contents of the artifact are at least matching to the source that we are started with. So, yeah, what are we going to do tonight? We're going to try and take over the world. That's what we do every night. So I'm going to demo it, because why not? The first thing we have to set up, just for our integration to actually work, is we set up a registry mirror. In this case, I'm pointing to my local machine on port 7888. That's what it's listening on. It's just key to realize that. And in fact, I can show you that it's just over here running in this other tab. So I'm just going to pull a Docker image, and it's done. I did cheat. That was preloaded, because this is over my phone network. But yeah, if you've already downloaded it before, it's really fast. And in fact, if I just remove it, so I just deleted it off of the local Docker and do it again, it's the same response time because it's already cached. Thank you. Questions?
So is this more of a way to store build artifacts, or is this also a thing that will build the packages or the build artifacts themselves and then store?
It's a build the artifacts itself and then store.
Okay.
And it has to do it on multiple nodes successfully.
So each node is building the build artifact and then checking that it matches?
Not necessarily the entire network, but a subset of the network, yes.
Yes, okay. So and yeah.
Think about, if you think of another question, you can reach out to me after. It's fine. I'll be happy to answer.
Right now, Persia's just, is that me saying that right? Persia, not like the country.
Either way.
Empire, okay.
Yeah.
Is Persia just an open source product right now? It's not integrated with JFrog's commercial offerings?
Correct. It is 100% open source. It's just not in a 1.0 release yet. It's in a milestone 0.2, which is why it has very few features.
And have customers been requesting the feature set that Persia provides? What was the motivation for corporate allowing your team or you personally to develop this thing, basically?
So the security implications that we're trying to solve are around the software bill of materials and the reproducibility. And the corporate appetite is around these attack vectors that have been happening in the open source world, because there's not a good provenance log of where, like if you go to Maven Central and you download a package, where did it come from?
Right.
How do you know?
Russia.
Maybe.
So I work with Nix a lot, and Nix has a solution to reproducible builds and content addressable builds. Have you guys researched using Nix or integrating that?
I love Nix. First of all, Nix OS, I assume
Nix
you
loves
mean?
you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nix package, man, Nix language, Nix OS, yeah, Nix community.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the work you guys are doing at Nix, or that the people at Nix are in the middle of working on. It's a very similar project. However, at least my initial analysis of Nix was it was mainly focused on Linux binaries. I mean, is that not the case?
Go ahead. You want to talk about this, Justin? I'll give it to Justin. Justin has more experience.
I've seen use cases where you can build like binaries for macOS works really great, but you can also do binaries. You can build binaries for Windows.
And we're not actually an operating system specific builds of any kind yet. So yeah, that's kind of the distinction. Nix is for building like statically, independently installable packages on your local box, but then how do you communicate that to the community at large so that they don't have to rebuild it?
Real question? Okay, so with Nix, there's a number of projects that cache builds and have source tied to those build inputs. So if a previous build, you can generate the SHA that should exist in the Nix output for a certain build, and having a registry that has those SHAs available allows you to trust that the build before was done properly and you can recycle that. So Nix registries exist for binary outputs, and they can be shared libraries, they can be static executables, any number of things, even source repositories.
And I've looked at a lot of that, and it works really well in the isolation of the Nix OS in my experience. But when you're trying to say, okay, now I want to exactly. It depends on the store, and it depends on the network, and it depends on who you trust. I have to trust that the cache providers are actually not malicious, and that their provenance log is actually valid, right? They could just say, oh no, we got this source from Maven wherever, and that's what we're building, but
The source in Nix, there's an effort towards making the source in Nix be like content addressed. Like it's very similar to IPFS. And like then you can sort of trust that, oh, look, this source actually matches because...
yeah, I started back in the old days with Gen 2. So believe me, I've been working on this problem zone name for a long time. I get what you're saying, and yes, they're very similar, but they're not identical.
I have one other really quick question. So one of the things that's like really annoying about Nix, well, I guess there's two things. One is that the file system hierarchy or file hierarchy system, everything gets stuck in like a /nix/store, and this like breaks everything. Do you guys have like a thought on how to sandbox builds, but also like not break everything else?
We're doing everything in a VM.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of idea. Like, you could always set up a Troot jail and just build in there if you really wanted to. And I thought Nix did that for a while. Yeah, so what I just said, a Troot. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously there's a lot of different ways you can approach that problem, but you know. Another question. So, like, Nix itself has a domain-specific language, and that domain-specific language, like, one, doesn't have types, and two is like the syntax is like not necessarily intuitive. Do you guys have thoughts on like how to describe packages and? Yeah, so we're working with the software bill of materials and the SBOM stuff, and then we're also looking into not so much in terms of the way we're assigning the content to addresses, but more to the way that we're going to package it and then distribute it. So we're really more focused on the distribution side than on the exactly, yeah. But we do have currently it's called a build prototype that's out there, and build prototype engine. And right now, like I said, it only supports Docker. There is a beta or an alpha even for Maven. I've seen it work, but I not enough to demo it.
Thank you. This is very cool.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. I'll be available if you have any questions.